The silent prey. The Galactic Concord had cataloged 10,000 worlds across 1,000 species, yet the pattern was always the same. Civilizations rose from the soil of prey. Herd thinkers, cautious planners, creatures who survived by watching the skies for shadows of talents. Their societies valued safety, order, and consensus, qualities that translated into stability and, eventually, spaceflight. Predators, on the other hand, were aberrations. On the rare occasions a hunter species reached for the stars, they carried with them instincts of dominance and bloodlust. They consumed themselves in fire long before they could threaten the galaxy. Those who survived were carefully quarantined or exterminated for the good of civilization. So when an unmanned Concorde probe drifted into a small, yellow sun system on the galactic fringe and reported back about a species called Homo sapiens, the council chambers buzzed with quiet dismissal. Another prey world, they thought. A fragile species on a blue-green planet, barely touching orbit, with no colonies beyond their home. Their numbers were modest, their cities scattered. They were insignificant. But then came the anomalies. The probe had recorded strange rituals, organized groups, chasing animals across plains until the creatures collapsed from exhaustion. Other footage showed humans laying elaborate traps, disguising their scent, camouflaging themselves, and striking not for immediate need, but for something else, something unsettling. Why? One counselor asked, her frilled antennae trembling. Do they kill when they're already full? No one had an answer. The Concorde dispatched a diplomatic vessel, crewed by cautious herbivores and one sharp-eyed xenoanthropologist to catalog the new arrivals. The ship landed outside a coastal human city called Sydney. They expected panic, confusion, perhaps awe at the sight of interstellar visitors. Instead, the humans smiled. They welcomed the strangers with outstretched hands, prepared translators within hours, and spoke with an ease that unsettled the delegation. They offered food, meat cooked over fire, and insisted their guests try it. They laughed too loudly, watched too closely, and asked as many questions as they answered. The ambassador, a soft-shelled Korean, recorded in his journal that first night. Their eyes do not look away. Even in politeness, there is calculation. They are friendly, yes, but it is the friendliness of one who pets a creature while measuring its weight. These are not prey. By the third day, the delegation had enough material to bring before the Concorde. The humans had shown them games that simulated deception, contests that glorified controlled violence, and stories where predators were not villains but heroes. When asked why they hunted despite having farms, a human simply shrugged and said, "Because it's what we are." The ambassador tried to sleep on the voyage home, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw those human smiles, curved lips, teeth bared in mirth. And he wrote one final line before the report was sealed. They smile when they lied. That is not prey behavior. Lessons in the hunt. The report shook the Galactic Concorde more than any single discovery in centuries. Still, many dismissed it. Surely the Korean ambassador was exaggerating. Surely these humans were simply eccentric herbivores with a taste for cruelty. To settle the matter, the Concorde dispatched observers. Discreet ships hung in the skies above Earth, recording everything. Work, play, conflict, ritual. The findings did not bring reassurance. Humans did not merely hunt for sustenance. They stalked prey across every environment. Plains, seas, forests, even frozen tundra. They ran animals down with endless stamina, striking only when their quarry collapsed from exhaustion. They built tools that extended their reach, bows, spears, traps, firearms. And when those tools were no longer necessary, they hunted still. They kill, whispered the xenoanthropologist, studying hours of footage, for the pleasure of testing themselves. Worse yet, humans did not always kill outright. Sometimes they captured. Sometimes they released. Sometimes they hunted one another, in contests framed as sport. To the prey-minded races of the Concorde, this was madness. To a predator, killing was survival. To a human, killing was choice. But the greatest revelation came not from their teeth or tools, but their minds. The observers noted how humans lied with ease, weaving words to mask intention. They watched a group of humans play a game of cards, where victory came not through strength or speed, but through deception, bluff, and reading the hidden cues of opponents. The aliens shuddered. In their worlds, such dishonesty was a mark of pathology. For humans, it was entertainment. The evidence mounted until the council chambers grew restless. The final straw came not from observation, but confrontation. A Concord patrol ship, tasked with a routine test of Earth's defenses, disabled one of its own engines to simulate distress. The plan was simple: lure human craft to assist, measure their capabilities, and retreat. Instead, the humans saw through the ruse. Without firing a weapon, they flooded the patrol's systems with a targeted electromagnetic pulse, leaving it dead in orbit. Human shuttles swarmed the ship, boarding not with violence, but with tools and grins. They took the crew unharmed, patched their vessel, and left it adrift. Perfectly functional, yet marked with strange insignia daubed across its hull. A wolf's head, a predator's eyes staring out from the void. The Korean ambassador, reviewing the incident, trembled as he spoke before the council. They had no reason to do this. They could have destroyed us. They could have aided us. Instead, they chose to play with us. Predators do not play with prey. Only something worse does that. The chamber fell silent. For the first time in generations, the prey-born rulers of the Concord felt a sensation they had nearly forgotten. It curled in their stomachs, raised the spines along their backs, and left their throats dry. Fear. Apex without teeth. Fear made the galactic Concord reckless. For millennia, their dominance had relied on stability, on predictable prey races forming predictable alliances. The thought of an unpredictable predator thriving within their borders was intolerable. So they acted as they always had. They prepared a fleet. Hundreds of ships gathered, a show of overwhelming force meant to remind humanity of its place. They announced the deployment as a peacekeeping action, though every species in the Concord knew the truth. It was intimidation cloaked in diplomacy. But the humans did not react like prey. The fleet entered Seoul expecting resistance, perhaps even futile defiance. Instead, Earth's skies remained calm, cities lit with ordinary life. No weapons bristled. No fleets rose to meet them. It seemed almost empty. Then the first supply ship vanished. It was not destroyed, just gone. Hours later, it reappeared on the edge of the fleet, drifting, its crew unconscious but unharmed. The vessel's systems had been scrubbed clean, its databanks replaced with a single human phrase translated into a dozen galactic tongues. "We see you." Panic rippled through the armada. No alarms had triggered, no intruders detected. Concord engineers tore through their systems, hunting for flaws, but found nothing. And yet, again and again, ships went dark, only to reawaken days later with systems rearranged and crews shaken by strange human symbols painted inside their hulls. The humans never fired a shot. It became clear humanity had no need for teeth. They had imagination. They had patience. And they had turned their predator's mind towards psychological warfare. Broadcasts followed. Concord soldiers awoke to eerie sounds piped through their comms. Haunting music, deep voices chanting in strange, rhythmic patterns. Images of wolves running under starlight, of sharks circling in endless black oceans. To prey species, these were nightmares made flesh. The Concord High Council met in secrecy, debating retreat, escalation, or extermination. Yet even within their chamber, rumors spread. Human envoys have been seen whispering among the galaxy's outcasts. Old predator species, once isolated and shunned, now gathered under Earth's banner. Wolves meeting wolves. One commander, desperate to regain control, demanded direct confrontation. His fleet cornered Earth's orbital defenses and broadcast the ultimatum. "You are surrounded. Submit or be broken." For a moment, silence reigned across every channel. Then a human voice, calm and almost amused, replied, "No, you are surrounded." And as the commander's sensors flickered back to life, he saw the truth. Not human warships, They had none to match Concord's fleet. Instead, the commander's own ships, scattered through the armada, were already sabotaged. Power failed. Shields flickered. Engines sputtered. Somewhere in the chaos, human allies among long-exiled predators revealed themselves, turning the fleet into a snare. It was not brute strength. It was not overwhelming firepower. It was the predator's oldest weapon, the trap. And the prey had walked right into it. The predators in the shadows. The Concorde fleet fractured within hours. Some ships disabled, others defecting, a few fleeing into the void with terrified crews who had never known such helplessness. Their carefully ordered hierarchy, forged over millennia, cracked under a force they had no doctrine to counter: unpredictability. Humans had not fired a single planet-shattering weapon. They had not unleashed swarms or superlasers. Instead, they had whispered into the cracks of the Concorde's confidence until the Great Alliance shook itself apart. Across the galaxy, prey species panicked. News feeds showed images of humans smiling beside their new allies, sleek predator races the Concorde had marginalized for centuries. Once feared, these species now marched beneath Earth's banners, their voices unified. We are not alone anymore. The High Council convened one last desperate session. In a chamber that had once ruled without question, silence hung heavy. Generations had taught them that predators were simple, brutal things, strong but short-lived, destined to burn out. Humanity had rewritten that law in a matter of months. They do not behave like predators, one counselor whispered. Predators kill swiftly. These humans do not. They wait. They mislead. They strike where we are weakest, not where we are strongest. Another spoke, trembling. Then what are they? The question lingered, unanswered. Meanwhile, humanity prepared its own message. It was not a threat, nor a boast. A single human envoy appeared before the council, clothed in simple gray, hands folded calmly. His words were quiet, yet they carried more weight than any fleet. You mistook us, he began. You saw our teeth and thought us predators. You saw our cooperation and thought us prey. But we are neither. We are what your categories cannot hold. We are survivors. We are opportunists. We become what we must, and that is why you cannot defeat us. He paused, letting the silence stretch, letting their fear bloom in the quiet. Predators hunt because they must eat. Prey flees because it must live. But humans? He leaned forward, eyes glinting. We choose, and choice makes us something older, something deeper, something you were never prepared to face. The envoy left without another word. The Concorde signed a treaty within days, not out of respect, but out of dread. Their fleets scattered, their unity broken. History would call it a peace, but every counselor who had heard the envoy's words knew the truth. It was surrender. In the centuries that followed, galactic historians wrote their conclusions carefully. Predators are feared for their hunger. Prey are pitted for their fragility. But humanity, the text paused, as if the scribe had struggled to find the words. Humanity is the shadow between the two. Not predator, not prey, something more dangerous. The last line, copied in dozens of languages, became a warning etched into every archive. Predators hunt. Prey flees. Humans choose. And that is what makes them terrifying.